Hi there, I hope you're good. So I want to do a mini series on shadow work on gender-based violence. Recently in South Africa, gender-based violence has been declared a national issue. So what is gender-based violence? It is literally violence on the basis of gender. So there are many reasons why a person can be violent to another. It can be because a person was provoked. So if you try to harm me and I respond with violence, or if you insult me and I respond with violence, that's violence on the basis of what you've provoked me to do. Gender-based violence is specifically violence against someone because of their gender. Femicide is someone being killed because they are a woman. Different to killing someone because of some sort of altercation that has resulted, but that has nothing to do with them being a specific gender per se. Now, why is femicide being declared a national issue something that is important to note? It's because thousands, if not millions, of women have lost their lives and have had no sort of recourse socially and legally that recognizes the gravity in which they're in when they are being a victim of their partner's violence against them. So declaring it a national issue is very important because it gives the issue the right sort of importance in our national dialogue from the government. However, when it comes to shadow work on gender-based violence, this is an individual thing that we all engage in because this is an issue in our country. If you're not a part of the solution, you are usually a part of the problem. And sometimes you're part of the problem because you are spectating and commenting and not actively doing anything to remedy the issue or make life better for those who are affected by this issue. You may personally not be affected by GBV, whether it's because you're a man or because you are a woman who has not been directly impacted. But the fact that it's a national issue in your country means that you live in a country where being a woman is not a safe state of being because you could be harmed because you are a woman. That is what gender-based violence means. So the shadow work series will specifically cover shadow work, the unconscious aspects when it comes to gender-based violence. Hi there, I hope you're good. So kicking off our series on shadow work on gender-based violence, I want to talk about how we as women are violent towards one another on the basis of being a woman. So we can be violent towards men, we can be violent towards children, we can be violent towards animals. But I'm going to talk about a way in which we as women are violent to each other because we are women, or on the basis of being a woman. As women, we are not usually are violent in the way that men are, in the sense that our violence is covert and hidden, unless you know how to recognize it, but its damage is just as severe. A woman can be so cruel, cutting, mean, demeaning, and humiliating to another woman just because she's a woman, because she's prettier than you, because she's more accomplished than you, or because she's ugly and she's unaccomplished, or she comes from whatever background. There is no end to the reasons that we as women are violent towards one another's souls. The way we destroy each other, or women, it's on a soul level. We want to destroy the soul, the emotions, the mind, the will, the spirit, the reputation, the image, the dignity of another woman because she's a woman. And 10 out of 10 times, this is a projection because she triggers insecurities within you or us that we don't want to deal with. So instead, we gather as girls to harm another woman by slandering her, gossiping about her, or you plan to steal her husband or her man, or to harm her in a way that she will feel and in a way that kills her soul. So when we are ending violence against women, we as women also need to look at ourselves and see, how do we create an environment in which harming us is okay in our own psyche? And it usually begins with how we treat one another. And this can be how you treat yourself. You may be the nice girl who's a bit fake because your violence is something that you direct inwardly towards yourself. You are a woman and you do not deserve the violence that you give to yourself. Just like other women don't deserve the violence from one another. So in integrating our shadow, it's important to become aware of this violence against ourselves. Hi there, I hope you're good. So doing some shadow work on gender-based violence, I want to talk about the situation, whether you're a man or a woman, where you grew up witnessing a woman being beaten or physically harmed by a man, her partner, her husband, her boyfriend, her lover, in some form or fashion in your household. So domestic violence, to be specific. When we think of domestic violence, that's the scene that comes into our mind. But doing shadow work on this, I want to just bring some awareness to a certain reality that is most often prevalent in domestic violence. Men and women are violent in two very different ways. So where there's a physical violence of a man in a domestic situation, there is often a non-physical violence of a woman in that same environment, whether she does so psychologically, through emotional manipulation, through soul humiliation, through degrading you, through being condescending. And the unfortunate thing is that because this doesn't take a physical form, it harms our psyche, it harms our soul, it destroys our spirit. We don't see that as violent too. So if you're a woman who grows up in that environment, you learn that that way of being, that very violent way of being, is normal, that it's a part of womanhood because you saw your mother being that way. When you are a man and you grew up in that environment, you think that that's a normal way for a woman to behave. And so you are oftentimes attracted to women who are violent to your soul, and you as a woman are often violent to other women and to men that you are in intimate and domestic situations with, because that is what you learned at home. This is not an excuse for why someone then should beat the shit out of someone or why someone should kill a woman. Nothing like that. This is understanding a different aspect, an unconscious aspect of violence and violent situations and violent dynamics, and becoming aware of the fact that if you witnessed that, in your shadow is a normalizing of a very violent way of being a woman, or a very violent way of perceiving womanhood. And when you integrate that, you first make it conscious. You become aware of the violent ways in which the victim of the physical violence was non-physically. Not to say it was her fault. It is never your fault, ever. It is always the fault of the abuser, and accountability needs to land there. But shadow work means making the unconscious aspect of the violent conscious, even if it's non-physical violence. Hi there, I hope you're good. Still on the issue of shadow work on gender-based violence, I want to add something which I believe is very important. As much as femicide has been declared an issue, I do think it is worth noting, and it's also important to note, that men can also be affected by domestic violence. There are men who are victims of domestic assault by their female spouses and or male spouses. There are a variety of dynamics at play in domestic situations, and it's not just a female victim and a male perpetrator. There are men who are silent victims of domestic violence, especially because there's an added stigma of shame when a man comes forward to say he has been sexually violated or he has been physically assaulted by his partner, whether male or female. And declaring a femicide a national issue does not mean that that is less of an issue, or that that is an aside, or that the pain of those men is less important than the pain of women. It's important that in the shadow work, we are working towards a cohesive society where both men and women are safe, and where our souls are healthy enough to get into loving relationships which are not violent, whether physically or non-physically, and where we can hold space for genuine compassion and empathy for each other as men and women in relationship with one another. So in our culture as a country, we don't see masculinity as needing protection, because oftentimes, especially when there is a femicide at play, the men are often the perpetrators of grave violence against both men and women. But it is worth noting that the pain of the men who are invisible, because they are men and because they are being violated, should also be noted and not dismissed and not humiliated and not laughed at, and they should not bear the brunt of their whole gender just because they are men who are animals and who are just demons in their households and in society.